Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
During Sparrow's free birth, she found herself unable to release her bladder. So when she arrived at the hospital seeking a catheter, instead she was misdiagnosed with HIV and given a C-section. She was kept from breastfeeding her son, harassed by social services, and spent the following next few days in a nightmarish hell as she fought for herself and her baby. So this episode is Sparrow's story, and it's also a celebration of who Sparrow is today and her new offering to the world. Sparrow is a very special woman who has devoted her life to serving pregnant women through high-level body work and birthkeeping. Today we are celebrating the launch of her new online program, Body Full of Grace, that I am so honored to be offering under Freebirth Society. It's a DIY prenatal care course for aligning with a pain-free, even easy pregnancy. So if you're pregnant or planning to be soon, or work with pregnant women, check it out and add it to your toolkit. So Sparrow is here with us this week to tell her tale, what she learned, and to share a really important tip that we hope will help other women stay home to birth their babies. Okay, so we have a special episode for all of you this week. I'm really excited to have a dear friend of mine with us on the show today. Welcome, Sparrow.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today is going to be a couple different things. We are first and foremost celebrating the launch of a new program under the umbrella of Freebirth Society that Sparrow has crafted in her absolute genius. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we've got some tips and tricks for birth attendants. And if you're pregnant, you definitely will want to listen to this episode. Let's just get into it. First, why don't you tell us who you are and where you live and what you do and what is this course?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Sparrow Harrington. I am located in Los Angeles. I have been a birth worker and body worker, I would say primarily for last 11 years, and really focusing on maternity, prenatal, postnatal, fertility work. And let's see, I've known Emily for 6 years. I mean, definitely in the birth scene here, worked with you as you were still dueling and working through, secondhand trauma of different things happening in the birth world here in LA. So, definitely have, my heart and my passion is around, supporting pregnant women and, really having them feel as free and joyful in this process and being able to heal as fully as possible. And so I've been facilitating that for a while, and it's what I love to do. And this course really grew out of my ability to not do that during COVID-19. Our wellness center in LA was completely shut down. I couldn't do any hands-on work for 3 months. And it was literally like one day we were working with a client, and the next day we were just like ripped off of their care team. And for some people, we were the center of their care team.
I want to brag about you for a quick second because Sparrow is a little famous in Los Angeles. She is the woman that when you're pregnant, you would be crazy not to have love on you, as a massage therapist. She really is the, I don't know. I mean, I was a pretty popular doula in LA, and everyone I knew of her, and she had a thriving prenatal massage, company, and served a lot. And serves a lot of women around Los Angeles. So I'm also kind of giggling to myself right now, remembering how you and I met, because now in retrospect, it's even funnier. So let's just share it really briefly, which is that what I recall was I was interested at this point. I think it was longer than 6 years ago, but I was interested in a midwifery school, and was, trying to figure out my path with all of this. And we got connected through a mutual contact because you had just decided, you had put the deposit down and then decided, no way, the school is not for me. And we got connected because I was going to take your spot in the school.
Which was so rad because you didn't know me at all. And you were literally like going to save me a few $1,000s of a deposit that I put down for, being technically enrolled for, only a few weeks. And I had realized that was definitely not going to be the right path for me. And you swooped in and you were just super cool. And it didn't work out because they wouldn't allow us to transfer.
And I didn't want to actually do it, it turns out.
Yeah. And
but a friendship was born.
Absolutely.
And I remember, meeting you as we were both like two doulas trying to figure out, what the heck was this licensed midwifery whole thing about. And we just super bonded over our own struggles to find the integral path in birth work, which we weren't really seeing any examples of. And that was kind of the start and the spark of our friendship, as I recall. So it's kind of crazy to be here so many years later and children later and so much to speak to. So, like you said, or like I was bragging about you, you were a busy, amazing healer in Los Angeles. I greatly benefited from your healing touch many times. But then with COVID, you weren't able to continue this practice. And so, you shifted gears and created something that now intersects with our company, which I'm really excited about. So take
me
it from
too.
there.
I love your company. I love everything that you put out. This podcast has been, life-changing for me and for, everyone that I share it with as well. So it feels really good to have landed here with you too.
So what is this program?
So the course, really grew out of how can I help people without being able to put my hands on them? And it was really interesting. It kind of just started to grow out of Instagram stories, like just asking people, like, what are you having pain with? Like, and, getting all these responses coming in and then being like, oh, you can do this at home. You can do this at home. And I was, doing tutorials and doing tips. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more here than I ever thought. Of course, like my passion is to work, through my hands. But once that was kind of like completely ripped away as even an option, I think it really revealed a lot of, I think it revealed my role as a teacher that I hadn't really acknowledged. I think that had been growing along with my hands-on practice. But once I didn't have that piece anymore, it was much easier to see that there are a ton of things that I teach my clients at home to really take your care into your own hands. And I personally had a wild, pain-free and really joyful pregnancy. And I've been able to, help so many others with that as well. And I think that's where the course grew out of. So the course is really focused on self-massage techniques, postural guidance, stretches and exercises and tips that address, it's the top 10 concerns that I hear from most pregnant women. And then there's also like supplemental material to, once your pain is gone, to maintain it that way. These are exercises, guidance, all of these really great practices that help you use your body in a way that, prevents pain from coming on, that can correct pain from coming on, and that I think even, and more importantly, that gives you a deeper understanding and connection and kinesthetic awareness of your body, which I think adds to the joy of being pregnant and certainly will help in labor and postpartum recovery as well.
And it's a DIY course, which we're all about at Free Birth Society,
yes.
Right? And that you don't necessarily have to, go out to professionals for a lot of what could truly be self-care, with some wonderful guidance. So we're going to be sharing some little tidbits that you can also find in the course. We're putting out this episode to celebrate the launch of the course. And so at this point, it'll be out. And so you can go ahead, it's out today. So you can go ahead and check it out at our website, freebirthsocietycourses.com. And the specific website is freebirthsocietycourses.com/bodyfulofgrace, which is the name of this beautiful program. So we're going to be talking about really Sparrow's personal journey of how she had a pain-free pregnancy. I mean, it's a pretty incredible thing to hear, and not something that we really hear enough of. And then also, how her story shifted throughout her labor and how she used, majorly shifted, and some stuff that she was able to have a full recovery in her postpartum in a really healthy way. And then, like we said at the beginning, there's also, I think, really for birth workers, some important stuff that we're going to be unpacking here that will greatly benefit your practice, really, to know kind of, I guess, the foreshadowing is a big thing that you learned after the fact that you wish you had known, and something I'm certainly grateful to know now. So where do you want to start with your story?
Let's see. I think maybe just by saying that, when we say that there was a big shift, I ended up with a pretty horrific birthing experience that, got pathologized and included a ton of extremely unnecessary trauma. And part of my healing, I think, with all this is that, I've been able to go back and just unpack, like, where did things go off? Because I came into my birthing experience, like, truly and deeply believing in the body's capacity and in my baby's capacity to have a physiological birth. And, I learned a really hard lesson that I want to share with anyone who's pregnant and, anyone who supports pregnant women, to ultimately, I didn't need to be pathologized. Ultimately, there was something that I could have done at home without ever having to probably even reach out for any help. And that's really what I want to gift to everyone, not only for you to have that knowledge, but also, like I said, for me, just as a piece of my own healing. It's, if I can prevent, anyone else from having to have a similar story, like even one person would be so deeply meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being this many months out of your birth, how do you see your story? Like, I am curious how you would tell that story now. Sure.
Maybe I should just give like a kind of overarch of what happened, and we can break it down a little bit more. But essentially, I had a wild pregnancy. Yeah. And I had 2 days of free birth labor, but then, ultimately ended up in the hospital for something that I know now I likely did not need to go there for. And when I went to the hospital and told them what I needed, they ignored me and sent me home without the catheter that I requested, which was, ultimately a very simple thing, like super, super simple. Like, I didn't even need to, they could have given that to me in triage and not even admitted me and just sent me home. And instead they told me that that's not what I needed, but they didn't ever really even check. And I went home and labored for a whole nother day on a bladder that was literally blocking my baby from passing.
So were you able to urinate at all? Like after they sent you home, after they were like, no, go fuck yourself, and then you go home, are you able to
I don't think
pee
so.
at all?
No. And the thing was, Emily, is that I had a high break in my waters, which was the, very first sign of my labor. And so I was trickling fluid. And so it was just one of those things where I was pretty sure that I wasn't peeing, and I was pretty sure that I needed a catheter, but I wasn't 100% sure, and then when you go to the hospital and these quote unquote professionals tell you, nope, that's not what you need, and send you home, there's a piece of me that believed them. Meanwhile, by the time, I went home and was laboring for a whole nother day on a bladder that couldn't release. And, I ended up having to go back to the hospital because my body was disfigured by the size of my bladder. Like it looked like I had two pregnant bellies, one on top of the other by the time I went back to the hospital. And when I went in, they were like, oh yeah, there's actually 1,200 cc's of fluid in your bladder. And it was literally like, my baby could not pass that. And so then, I got the catheter, but here's the doozy, and here's the rest of it. We got my bladder out of the way. My labor is progressing. And two doctors come into the room, ask all of my support people to leave, and diagnose me with HIV in the middle of my labor, which turned out to be completely false, completely wrong. They refused to retest me during labor when I requested it, and so treated me as if I was HIV positive, and then just presumed that my baby was. And so
when you say diagnose, you mean that in your admission labs and they drug test you?
They were taking blood. They were running all sorts of, but either way, they did a quick test, and which they also assured me was highly accurate, because I said that's inaccurate. Like, please retest me. And they refused because they said there was no time.
So two doctors come in, tell everyone to leave, and they tell you, we just ran a test that you didn't even really know about. And by the way, you're HIV positive. And so we're going to assume that your baby's HIV positive as well.
Correct.
Holy fuck.
Holy fuck. And, for me, it's really interesting because I felt I was exhausted, and I knew that I needed some help, but I had so much knowledge about my body, and like, I'm really good at advocating for myself. And I literally thought that I could go in there and actually get help. And so when they said that, I remember having this moment of feeling like the jaws of the beast closing around me, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how to navigate this. I really don't, because, it instantly put me in the category of, you are putting your baby in danger. And of course, I was like 99% sure that couldn't be true. But of course, there's that little tiny bit. I'm like, what if I was putting my baby in some kind of danger, And I felt like it was instantly like my mothering instincts came up. I'm like, what do I need to do to make sure that my baby is okay? And they let me believe that for 2 days, Emily. That's how long it took for them to get definitive test results that we were totally negative, that we were both completely healthy, and that they made a huge, huge mistake.
So it was a false positive.
It was a false positive on the quick test. And then when they sent in for the definitive test, it was clearly negative. Yeah.
Was there a point in those 2 days of hell that you started to believe maybe you were HIV positive?
It's funny because like, I didn't really have that much time to think about that, because I literally was dealing with CPS from the moment they wheeled me out of a C-section, which I didn't need.
You did not need. Even if you were HIV positive, you wouldn't need it.
It was so crazy. But I think that ultimately the decision to do the C-section was based on the fact that by that time when I could have pushed the baby out, I knew that I was going to be somebody that needed like 2-3 hours based on how tired and unsafe I felt, like super, super unsafe. and how tired my uterus was after 3 days of laboring against a full bladder, that I knew that they were gearing up to take that baby to the NICU for any reason. And I knew that if they took him to the NICU, there was a good chance that I wasn't going to see him again, for however long. And I said, I just wanted my son out and in my arms. And as soon as he was in my arms, like, he didn't leave my sight. And I spent those 2 days, like, literally just fighting with CPS and social workers and moron doctors. And so I didn't really have that much time to think about, like, I don't know. I felt
survival.
like the longer the time went, it was pure survival, but also, like, the more time went on, the more I actually thought that they were wrong, because I started to just see how they all operated. And I was like, this is a shit show, like, I didn't feel like anything they did was professional.
Right.
And so it was almost like the more time went by, the less scared I became of actually being sick. And the more scared I became of CPS not giving a shit about actual test results and, trying to take my baby regardless.
Okay, so they tell you you're HIV positive and you're well into your labor and you're obviously admitted at this point.
Yeah.
And so they were just like, we need to get the baby out, kind of classic C-section line.
Well, first they were trying to tell me that there was a lesser chance of the baby contracting it with a C-section. And I was like, how does that make sense?
That makes no sense.
Can somebody explain that to me?
No.
Yeah. And then it was like, you could push the baby out. Like, we'll give you like a little bit of time. And of course, like, I could have really fought for that, Emily, and just been like, no, like, I'm going to take as long as I need, even if that's 3 hours or whatever, which I kind of intuitively felt like that's what my body would have needed under those circumstances to have a vaginal birth. But I felt like they were looking for any reason to take that baby. It was BS. Like, it wasn't that I fully believed them. It was just that I could kind of see the writing on the wall in terms of the NICU unit that kept coming in and kept coming in. And, oh, we just need to set this up here. And I was like, no. I was like, I've asked you to leave so many times. So they started to do the whole, he's having D cells, he's not going to tolerate labor. And all of that stuff.
I get it. You were seeing this setup and you were like, let's just go before it becomes like catastrophic.
Yes.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
And I can't, and I get why you would want to like go in and figure out what was I thinking at that moment. And it's interesting because even when I look back on it, like, it wasn't so much a logical, rational thought. It was intuition. Like, I just really felt like if I go this way, like, they're going to take this baby. And if I go this way, they won't. And I mean, ultimately it did work out that way.
What a fucked way to have to think.
It was
while you're like, to strategize which path of abuse will help your baby stay with you.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
All from a goddamn false test.
Correct. Yeah.
And an abusive system.
Yeah.
Okay. So you strategize the right survival move to keep your kiddo with you.
Yeah.
And for 2 days, you're just dealing with a total shit show.
Complete shit show. I mean, people were in my room literally almost every 10 minutes for like the 2 days that I was there. Like, and I mean, until like, 10, 11 o'clock at night, there was just people in and out. And it was really like, it was a thing. Like, I could feel like when I'm getting moved through the hallways, it was like, that's the mom, who,
my God.
Yeah. I mean, the nurses who came into my room, I didn't feel that from them, but like people passing, you know what I mean? The doctors, everybody, it was like, I could feel them all getting off on this, to be honest. Like, it was really, really creepy. And I had to play golf with them to keep my child safe.
You said that you were wheeled from your C-section to talk with CPS.
They met me in the recovery room. I wasn't even in a room yet. Like, my quote unquote golden hour that they're supposed to know about and respect was, I literally kept saying that over and over. I was like, why are you here? It was 9 people. It wasn't just like one social worker. I had a doctors, team of midwives, and social workers, 9 people as I'm coming out for my C-section. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Like
criminal.
It really felt that way. It really felt that way. And I couldn't make this shit up, I could not make this shit up. And like I said, having all of the experience that I had, like I went in there thinking like, it's going to be okay. Like I know how to navigate this. And I was so wrong, So
what hospital were you at?
Kaiser Sunset.
On Sunset?
Mm-hmm. Which is supposed to be better than most. Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
They're all using the same test.
No, they are. I mean,
oh my God. I mean, yeah, you really can't make this shit up.
I couldn't. So, yeah.
So you went in there, just to be clear for anyone, because we just went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You were clear prior to being in the hospital. You were clear that you needed help relieving your bladder.
Correct.
You couldn't figure it out. You tried everything you knew, and you knew that you were not voiding properly, which absolutely is a serious problem. That's not, that's not like a casual thing. That can lead to infection. It can lead to pretty serious stuff. So you are clear that the bladder is not relieving itself. You went in for a cath, and you got the cath the second time around. Correct. And you also got a false diagnosis of HIV positive and a C-section you didn't need.
Right.
And 2 straight days of harassment.
Yeah. And the inability to breastfeed my newborn until the test results came back.
Oh my God.
And having to hustle the hospital just to get donor milk. Yeah. Yeah.
So much rage is pulsing through my body right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what?
So, well, I mean, I kind of feel like that's what everybody needs to know in terms of why I would love to give you this tip that I learned after the fact. Because I think that was a huge piece of, reflecting on, it was horrendous birth, horrible treatment, horrible abusive, horribly unnecessary, all of it. And so I think for me, I can see, of course, why so many people, you want to go down that path of like, oh, this was so necessary and the doctor saved me from X, Y, and Z in emergency. And it's like, there was none of that with me. So I'm just like, how did I end up there? What can I reflect on? What can I learn from this? What can I take away from this? And, I learned something from a dear friend of mine who is a pelvic floor physical therapist. And we just went through the birth step by step, like how my labor started, what happened, and that was really great for me because I was like, did I need to be pathologized, and did I need to be pathologized to that degree? And like you said, like not being able to void the bladder and having a literal physical barrier to my baby being able to come down and make contact with my cervix. Like, yes, that's serious, but could there have been something that if I had known I could have done at home? And I was so grateful to know that the answer is yes. And that's really what I want to speak to today so that I can give that to everybody else, the knowledge that I wish I had, so that I wouldn't have even had to leave my home, so that I could have voided my bladder. So, you cool if I just go into that?
Absolutely.
So, what I talked through with my pelvic floor friend was that the first sign of my labor beginning was a high incomplete break in my water. So probably like my son's like toenail or something like broke my waters. And it was just a little splash of water, but that we are pretty sure it dropped him down onto my urethral sphincter so that his head was actually compressing the sphincter that controlled my bladder being able to relieve itself. And so I, at that point, no longer had conscious control over that. And because the water was, incompletely broken, I had fluid leaving me, but none of that was clearly, I didn't know that, but it wasn't urine that whole time. So there was, a bunch of time that passed that I probably thought that I was peeing, and then started to realize like, I just remember feeling like my contractions were strong, but they didn't feel like they were progressing in a way. And of course, like being a first time mom, I didn't know exactly what that meant. It was just kind of this inner knowing of like, this doesn't feel efficient, even though I can feel my body working really hard. And so I would say I was in labor for about a day and a half of just really trying to figure out, what was going on. And then I kind of came to the just intuitive conclusion that, I'm not peeing and I need to get my bladder, relieved. So, my good friend, as we're walking through all of this, she was explaining to me that, the bladder, as it's connected to the urethral sphincter, that only one of them can be contracted at the same time. So because my son's head was, compressing it, my urethral sphincter was contracted like my entire labor. And so she explained that if you were to like tap hard enough on your actual bladder to get the muscle fibers of the bladder to contract, that would by default release your urethral sphincter to allow your bladder to empty. So that's really what I wanted to share and what I wish I had known and wish I had been able to try at home before I ever had to reach out for help. That should have only been at most a catheter, but, turned into, really.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. So if you, whatever, could go back and do it again and had been able to, you're saying tap, like what, like tap rhythmically for a couple of minutes?
I think that it's tap hard enough to give the bladder enough stimulus that the muscle fibers are like, oh, I need to contract and respond to this stimulus. So however that tapping needed to be in order for that to happen, getting the muscle fibers of your bladder to contract would have released. Because they work in symmetry with each other. So one cannot be contracted while the other is relaxed. So if you were to ask the one that is relaxed to now contract, it would by default release the one that had been contracted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to make sure that's like clear in how we're explaining it.
Yeah. And I mean,
because this is very important, for anyone who's listening, who is a new birth worker, or if you're a mother, who is just learning about this stuff, I really want to say here that, this bladder thing can sometimes be a thing.
Yeah.
It's not super rare. It's not one of those, I guess I'll call it a complication. It's not one of those circumstances that is like almost never happens, like a lot of things that get overblown in the system, as you're familiar with if you hear this podcast. Mm-hmm. This really is, the bladder not emptying, and a laboring mother's awareness not being on the bladder, is also very understandable and common. And so if you are listening to this and you're planning a free birth, I think it's really wise to have, if you have a witness, if your partner, whoever is there, to have the witness hold awareness around your bladder, and that somebody in the room needs to be thinking about your bladder, first of all.
Yeah.
Because it might not be you. I recently did a session with a woman who was like, I had a great birth. Everything was great, but I couldn't pee the whole time. I just couldn't pee. And then afterwards, I couldn't pee. And I was so uncomfortable. I was crying in discomfort hours and hours after. I couldn't pee afterwards. And so we went to the hospital for a cath, and that's not necessarily a problem, except who wants to leave, after they've just given birth. Obviously, that's not the vision. And so there are, in the free birth world, I think that these kind of possibly correctable potential complications need to get talked about, so that we are not running to the system unless it's truly needed. Because unfortunately, as Sparrow's story, shows, you just never know. It's such a slippery slope. And once you're in, like she said, like the claws, just kind of, or the jaws of the system just kind of came around you with like an unimaginable scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, unimaginable.
I could have never, ever.
Me either.
Dreamed that up. Mm-mm.
I thought you were fucking with me.
Oh God, I wish I was.
I know, me too. Yeah. I mean, it was so incredulous. It really took me like a couple days of wrapping my head around this story that that this is just like another story. This is just another way that the system totally lets us down. So anyway, so the bladder, the bladder is an important thing, and it's something that, I'm glad we're kind of opening this up, and I hope this feels, really like applicable to birth workers, because if you think that if you're planning or if you do attend births and you aren't a medical provider and you don't cath your clients, which I'm assuming you don't, if you're not a medical provider, this basic trick of tapping to help, release the bladder, could be the thing that helps the family you're serving stay home.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, if I could save one family from having to leave their home, that would be amazing to me. Like I learned a really, really, really hard lesson in this. And like I said, if I can share and help make it better for others, like that's really healing for me. Like it's helping me kind of feel more complete with just my story, and I love that you are speaking to, having someone else kind of hold awareness of the bladder. Cause I've heard you say that also, of having someone else hold awareness of the placenta as well. So I think that, it's wonderful.
So then let's shift into your recovery, and I'm kind of specifically, I guess, interested in, and I mean, I guess if there's anything about the pregnancy too, using this term pain-free pregnancy, I think is going to pique a lot of people's interest. It definitely piques mine. And knowing that you had, a surgical birth and just so much fuckery those first couple days. And then you come home and then it's like the genius of your work and everything you've devoted your life to starts to really shine, because you do breastfeed, you do recover, and you're physically thriving, and I know, because I know you, that so much of it is around the tools and the information that you've put in this course for other women to access. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So I had a pretty remarkable recovery considering everything that went down. I had plenty of milk. I healed my scar. I had my hands on my scar, even just sending it love and light, like from the moment, I got home, and then continued to do like work on my actual scar. But I think that really, like, the underlying structures that I had really trained to be in like optimal alignment and optimal, health, all during my pregnancy. And like I said, I had a completely wonderful pregnancy. Never could have guessed the birth went that way. But then, in postpartum, like I have full range of motion in my body, which so many women, post-surgical birth do not. And, I have no residual back pain, which so many women after surgical birth cannot say that. I was fully able to breastfeed, and I'm still breastfeeding, which so many women, that's not true for them either.
Yeah.
And amazingly, I have no residual issues with my bladder, which I think is huge. Like I really think that is a huge piece of all of the work all of the things that I implemented during my pregnancy. And that served me just completely into a really intense postpartum, but ultimately one that, with everything that I had implemented from the course, these are things that I've lived and that have helped, real life women with all of that's in the course, that, I've been able to thrive in postpartum. And also I should say, like, I also rested. So please also plan on doing that if you're listening to this. Like, I really, really rested, and I asked for help and I accepted help.
Yeah. It's like the most fundamentally important double banger. So if you're willing to rest and you're willing to ask for help, then also get the program.
Yeah.
And do all of it together.
Yeah, because I do think, like, what your body's not a completely different thing right on the other side of birth. I mean, it's definitely definitive transformation. I'm not saying that, but what you do leading up until your birth is the body that is going to then be recovering on the other side. And so, I just feel like everything that's in this course, from, the postural stuff, is huge. Like, how are you habitually using your body every day leading up to your birth and to your postpartum? How to get to know your body with self-massage techniques. Like, and I really show you, like, sometimes the things that hurt are not always where you think it is in pregnancy, and just, knowing how to navigate the pregnant body so well. Like, I'm just going to show you where to look, and where to find things on yourself, and to really deepen your connection with your body. Tons of exercises and stretches as well, that I know will serve you, and that I'm so excited to just be able to, put this in your own hands. Because like you said, like, not everybody might have a massage therapist or a chiropractor that they, can access, can afford, that they know, like, and trust, all of those things that really make for a good therapist. And even if you happen to, like, that person's not going to be there in the middle of the night if any of these things come up. Like, I'm a great massage therapist, but I don't do midnight house calls. You know what I mean? So just being able to have this, I hope that it really serves everyone who's listening to this. And this can also be for, any birth keepers who just want to have tools to help their clients, because everything in here is the things that I've seen over and over and over again for over a decade of doing this work. So
give us some, like, specific things that it addresses so that we know, for those who are interested.
Yeah. I mean, it covers everything from round ligament pain to edema and swelling in the body, carpal tunnel syndrome in pregnancy, which is its own unique thing, general back pain, sleeplessness. It addresses headaches. It addresses rib cage pain, shortness of breath, and how that ties into anxiety. Just that whole feedback loop. Calf cramps and restless legs, sciatica and broad ligament referral pain into the sides of your pelvis and sometimes down your legs. So those are the 10 core lessons. Oh, and of course, pubic symphysis pain. And that I feel like is huge, because it's like, even if you have a great chiropractor and you're getting your pubic bone, readjusted, that joint is so unstable that it could literally go out later that day. And so I teach you how to adjust it yourself. So whenever you need it, it's just there for you. And then, so those are the 10 core lessons. And then I've got a bunch of, like, additional lessons that are really about, like, maintaining the goodness once you've got it going. I show you all of the things that I did morning and evening during my pregnancy. There's a pelvic tilt breakdown. There's postural guidance breakdown. There's a baby lift breakdown, which is really good for combining with a pelvic tilt to elongate your low back, to relieve edema that can really kind of dam up in your inguinal ligament, which is where your legs and your pelvis meet, kind of at what would be a bikini line. And then, I wanted to, like, do more than just, like, okay, let's get you out of pain. Let's teach you how to, like, stay pain-free. And then I've got, like, some bonus sections in there that really move into, once you are pain-free and maintaining that, like, here's some juicy, like, self-nurturance stuff that you can do as well. So we've got some guided breath work, bonus material, and, like, some DIY foot soak and facial lessons in there as well, so that you can actually get to the piece of just really thriving and just soaking up the joy of this special time.
It's really making me think about how much I didn't do any of that and had a pretty serious neck injury at 5 weeks postpartum.
I remember.
That became, like, a chronic problem for, it was like 7 months. Wow. And I, like, couldn't pick up my baby without pain, and I couldn't carry her, and we had to get a stroller, and I, like, never thought I would have a stroller. And, I still have, like, almost never worn her. Like, when we go hiking, like, I would not wear her in the backpack just because of the extra compression on my cervical vertebrae. But I appreciate you kind of pointing out, like, the cyclical, like, the body that you're in now is obviously the body that you're going to be pregnant in. It's obviously the body that's then going to be recovering.
Yeah.
And, I think we all obviously struggle in our own ways with self-care and kind of like the cognitive dissonance around that very concept, Yeah. And like, oh yeah, I'll totally get to it later. But on the brink of, really thinking about my next conception, this is the big thing kind of on my mind of like, what am I willing to do and kind of contend with? And it's coming, this course coming out now is selfishly really wonderful for me because, getting to commit to this course for my own upcoming pregnancy and explore. I mean, I had a pretty easy pregnancy, but I did have a lot of swelling towards the end. Like it was pretty bad.
And there was a little bit of time there too where you were dealing with heartburn. So I've also got a section in the course on
and the headaches.
Yeah.
The headaches, the second trimester headaches were brutal. And then there was I remember the heartburn. Now it's all coming back. And then I didn't really have insomnia, but I remember waking up with a Charlie horse in the middle of the night one time thinking I was going to die.
They can be really intense. Yeah.
Oh my God. I hadn't had that since I was like a kid or something. Yeah, that was crazy. But anyway, I'm feeling excited thinking about this in my own life and kind of tracking, right? And like hindsight, right? Like tracking back, had I known I was going to have that injury, I would have probably taken better care of myself. And in some ways, I mean, I felt like I was taking really good care of myself, but this program it's such an easy thing to implement, because like we're saying that you don't have to go to a chiropractor. That was the other thing is I lived really rurally.
Right.
And so there just wasn't anyone.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm totally going to do it as I get close to my pregnancy. So that was, I guess, kind of my last question about the program. Like, when do you suggest someone starts it? It sounds like it's pretty made for once you're already pregnant, or what would you say?
I mean, I feel like it absolutely could be for anyone who's currently trying to conceive or even, contemplating that, because if you can get your body in proper alignment, like if you can work on the postural stuff and like start implementing some of these exercises, and then maybe even like watch the stuff ahead of time, like you will already just have all this stuff in your back pocket. So like you don't have to wait till like carpal tunnel is like excruciating for you to be like, shit, I think I need that course and the lessons. You can be like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit of this. I know exactly what to do, ahead of time. Like instead of, the first whisper that your body is giving you of like things are starting to get a little bit off, like you're going to have tools right there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, and we price this too, so that it's, it costs less than what it would cost to get a prenatal massage.
Yeah.
And, I hope and I want it to be accessible for everyone. It really is, the same explanations that I give my clients. I really tried to make the course that it's not dumbed down, but you certainly don't need to know anatomy. Like I walk you through everything that's going on. And I do talk about like what's going on in the underlying structures, which I think is good for birth keepers, but I think it's also good for pregnant women, just because I feel like you being able to visualize what you're doing and why you're doing it makes what you're doing more effective. But I really wanted it to feel like it's just like a knowledgeable, helpful friend walking you through all of these great things that you can do at home. And I feel like it was also like a way for me to just kind of break away from the thing that drives me insane that I've heard from so many clients, for so many years, of just like, oh, I've heard that this will just go away after I give birth, as if you just have to suffer, through your whole pregnancy and then magically it's just going to go away. And it's just like, that to me just also speaks to, we know the system just, it's so fucked. And it starts long before birth. It starts with even just normalizing, oh yeah, sorry, that just comes along with being pregnant,
Exactly.
Suck it up or whatever.
Not that it's like a sign, of your body asking you to come back into alignment.
Absolutely. Like I really truly believe that pregnancy is one of like the fullest expressions of wellness that we will ever have in our lifetime, right?
Not like pregnancy equals suffering, which is, a longstanding kind of historical narrative, right?
Totally. Anyhow, that's also why I feel really proud of this course, because I wanted to just have, just a body of like, here, this is why you don't have to accept that bullshit,
Yeah.
So,
and take responsibility.
Yes. And participate in your care,
Yeah.
like be your care. It's your body, it's your baby, like mother yourself so that you will be the best mother to, this little one on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. So it's out now. I'm so proud of you. I'm so honored to be able to offer this under this umbrella of amazing programs that we have, and that we get to add your genius to the beautiful.
I'm so deeply
palette.
honored to be included in like the other amazing offerings that you have, and just the amazing work that you're putting out in this world. Yeah.
And to do, and just to like, I have a lot of respect for you for taking your story and really trying to make something of it, both internally, like critiquing it and working with it and dissecting it, and just seeing like what was here for your learning and how and what there is to do and how this affects your work. And I'm so happy you had such a good recovery. And
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know for a fact, a lot of it had to do with your very work, your actual devotion to understanding the body and coming into alignment, and that you really walk your talk. So I'm excited for all the women who are going to explore this course, and you can all take it with me because I'm going to start it now too.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Just for having this platform, for giving me the opportunity to share this, and just love and appreciate you.
And that's it for today, my sisters. Check out everything we do, including one-on-one and group coaching, learn about our private membership, in-person retreats, and more on freebirthsociety.com. Our online courses are on freebirthsocietycourses.com, including our flagship course, The Complete Guide to Free Birth. Don't miss the Radical Birthkeeper School if you're ready to become the authentic midwife that women are searching for. Together we rise, and the revolution starts inside each of us. Our opening song is by Shyla Ray. And now I'll leave you with our Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars.